Namaste. Spiritual psychology, in simple words, is the art of understanding and transforming the ego so that it serves the soul instead of sabotaging it. Have you noticed how inside you there are many yous and I's? One part of you wants to meditate, another part wants to watch Netflix. One part wants to forgive, another part wants to extract revenge. In this podcast on spiritual psychology, part 1, let us explore these inner characters that are inside us, not as a dry theory, but as a practical mirror, so that by the end you can say, now I understand why I behave the way I do and how I can grow. So, what is the ego really? When people say drop the ego, what exactly are they talking about? Well, we can say that there are two forms of ego: egoity and egoism. Egoity is the basic sense of I am, the simple awareness that I exist. Egoism, on the other hand, is the I plus mine package. My body, my status, my possessions, my opinions, my story, my relations, my home, etc. Egoity is the bare I am. It is just a function. It does not bind you nor create any problems. Egoism, on the other hand, is the sticky identification with body and possessions. Is what produces attachment, fear, anger, and suffering. Vedanta would say that the pure I amness is a reflection of Atman in the intellect, called the Vijnanamaya Atma. The I amness is a reflection of consciousness in the intellect, called the Vijnanamaya Atma. When that pure I gets mixed up with body, emotions, and our personal stories, it becomes the Manomaya Atma, the psychological ego that we struggle with daily. So the pure I amness, the feeling that I exist, doesn't cause any conflict. When mixed with the body-mind intellect, when it becomes the Manomaya Atma, the psychological ego, here begins the entire spiritual struggle. What spiritual aspirants are struggling is with the psychological ego. So here is the surprising insight. Ego is not always bad. We can also say that the ego, that is the psychological ego, is of two types: the immature ego and the mature ego. The immature ego is weak, insecure, reactive, full of me. It clings to lust, anger, fear, jealousy, and comparison. The mature ego, on the other hand, is purified, strong, unselfish, awake. It is the ego that has grown up. The mature ego is needed to do tapas, to stay with intense sadhana, to serve others, to face life's blows without collapsing. So the first task of spiritual psychology is not to kill the ego, as popular religion and popular books on spirituality say that you have to kill the ego. So the first task is not to kill the ego, but to elevate it, to transform the immature ego into a mature ego. There's a lot of ideas in spiritual literature where they emphasize the importance of selfless work. Even this so called selfless work is not literally without self. Only machines can be without self awareness. What the Gita calls nishkama karma is better understood as unselfish work or action without the grasping, immature I. So, like we said, there are many selves inside us. Spiritual psychology says you are not one simple self, you are a cooperative society of selves. In Vedanta, the Taittiriya Upanishad speaks of 5 Atmas or sheets. The Annamaya Atma or the body self, the physical body as a living self. The pranic self or the pranamaya Atma, which is the life energy that links body and mind. The mental ego self or the manomaya Atma, the emotional self, which consists of the mature and the immature ego. And then the knowing self or the Vijnanamaya Atma, the pure sense of I am, the egoity. Then there is also something called as the Anandamaya Atma, which is the bliss self. I will not go into that right now in this part 1. So each of these has its own laws and its own agenda. Spiritual growth means understanding them, purifying them, and integrating them for one higher purpose. So now let's discuss the body self. Body self or the Annamaya Atma. Much of spiritual literature emphasizes the dangers of the ego and the mind and the feelings and the emotions as hindrances to spiritual growth. They just dismiss the body as the not self. But in spiritual practice, the body is plays a very important role, both positively and negatively. So most sadhakas either over glorify the body or hate it. Spiritual psychology invites a more intelligent view. The body is a part of universal life and is temporarily on loan to us. So we have to take good care of it. We can say that there are 4 natural tendencies of the body. First, the body image. How you feel about how you look. This body image plays an extremely important role in our life, and we do not pay much attention to this aspect. At puberty, a sharp body image is born, and after that, it quietly colors our every interaction. Over obsession with looks creates crippling self-consciousness, which blocks awareness of our consciousness. The second natural tendency of the body is hunger. Not just the need to eat, but the craving for the pleasure of eating. This can become a big obstacle in spiritual life if not understood and divinized. The third is kama, the powerful sex drive, the root energy which is behind many of our desires. And the fourth is fear of death, which is a universal instinct in all living beings. Spiritual surrender and some understanding of life after death help this fear of death to mature into wisdom. So the clear key point in this is that these are the natural urges of the body and not moral defects. This is a very important point. Guilt and self-hate damage spiritual life more than these natural forces themselves. A lot of spiritual sadhakas waste their time and energies thinking that these natural urges are evil. Next, coming to the pranic self. The pranic self is where the raw life energy lives, the drives for pleasure and aggression, and the desire to go away from pain. It converts bodily urges into emotions, impulses, and desires. Most of this operates unconsciously and is partly repressed and partly suppressed. The everyday ego's job is to keep this pranic self in check, which is why when control fails, even a cultured person can suddenly behave like a brute and an uncivilized person. In dreams, this pranic self gets more freedom and appears as the dream self, sometimes acting against our waking values. So spiritual work here means to acknowledge this inner animal, to understand it, to own it as mind, and then slowly transform and integrate it into a higher personality. Then there is something called fantasy self. The fantasy self is the hero in our daydreams, always noble, powerful, and admired. It is the ego's way of taking consolation in imagination when it cannot achieve something in real life. Used wisely, it lets us try on higher ideals before we live them. But it can become a negative self too. Then there is something called the idealized spiritual self. It is the inner image you create to relate to your chosen deity or Ishtadevata. To worship Krishna, you create one kind of inner self-image. To worship Devi, another self-image is created. With long practice, this spiritual self-image becomes more real than your old limited self. Now both these selves, the fantasy self and the spiritual self, are masks created by the ego, but they can be used as ladders. Fantasy can stay childish, or it can be refined into a mature spiritual ideal that slowly reshapes our character. So where does spiritual psychology begin? Not by hating the ego, body, or instincts, but by seeing them clearly, honoring their laws, and slowly elevating them. That is, transforming the immature ego into the mature ego. Educating the body self instead of fighting it with guilt. Befriend the pranic self and channel its energies. Use fantasy to build a noble spiritual self-image instead of an escapist one. So in the next part of this series, we'll go deeper into how all these cells can be aligned with the consciousness of the Atman, so that the spiritual life is not a war within, but a harmonious orchestra playing one divine melody.